I thought I knew my husband of 7 years until the day he announced my pregnancy to our entire family during Thanksgiving dinner. Standing in that crowded room with 18 relatives staring at me expectantly, I felt my world tilt sideways. The problem was simple, yet devastating. I was not pregnant. Never was. But there was Marcus, my supposedly loving husband, beaming as everyone rushed to congratulate us on news that was completely fabricated. Before I tell you how this nightmare unfolded and how I got my revenge, let me know in the comments where you are watching from, and please hit that like button and subscribe for more real stories. Trust me, you will not believe what this man put me through and how satisfying his downfall became. Marcus and I had been married for 7 years, and we had been trying to have a child for the past 2 years. Those 2 years felt like an eternity filled with hope and heartbreak. I had suffered through 3 miscarriages, each one leaving me more desperate for the family we both claimed to want. Marcus had always been my anchor during those dark times, holding me while I cried, reassuring me that our time would come, and promising me that we would get through anything together. I trusted him completely, believing he was the one constant I could rely on in this unpredictable world. The Thanksgiving evening that changed everything started innocently enough. We were gathered at his mother Dorothy's house, a tradition we had maintained since our wedding. 18 people filled her dining room, both our families, cousins, aunts, uncles, and a few close family friends. The table was set with Dorothy's finest china, and the smell of turkey and stuffing filled the warm house. Everyone was relaxed, sharing stories and catching up on the year that had passed. I was helping Dorothy clear the appetizer plates when Marcus suddenly stood up from his seat at the head of the table. He picked up his wine glass and tapped it gently with his fork, causing conversations to fade as all eyes turned toward him. My stomach dropped without understanding why. Something about his expression, the way his eyes gleamed with excitement mixed with something I could not quite identify, made me uneasy. "Everyone, I have some incredible news to share," Marcus announced, his voice carrying across the room with practiced confidence. "Lillian and I are thrilled to announce that we are expecting our first child." The room exploded into celebration. Chairs scraped against the hardwood floor as people jumped up to embrace us. Dorothy burst into tears of joy, clutching my hands and telling me how she had been praying for this moment for years. My sister Jennifer squealed and wrapped me in the tightest hug, whispering how happy she was for me. Marcus's brother Brian slapped him on the back, grinning widely as he talked about becoming an uncle. I stood frozen in the center of this chaos, my mind reeling as I tried to process what had just happened. Every instinct in my body screamed that something was terribly wrong. I was not pregnant. I had taken a test just 3 days earlier because my period was late, and it had been negative. Yet here was my husband announcing to our entire family that we were having a baby, and I found myself trapped in a situation where contradicting him would humiliate us both in front of everyone we loved. The questions came fast and relentless. "How far along are you?" asked my Aunt Margaret, her eyes bright with curiosity. Marcus jumped in before I could stumble through an answer. "About 6 weeks," he said smoothly, wrapping his arm around my waist in what appeared to be a loving gesture, but felt more like a trap. "Have you been to the doctor yet?" Dorothy wanted to know, still wiping happy tears from her cheeks. "Do you know if it is a boy or girl?" "Oh, I hope it is a boy. Marcus was such a wonderful little boy." People reached out to touch my stomach, and I had to force myself not to recoil. Jennifer asked about my symptoms, and I found myself inventing stories about morning sickness I had never experienced and fatigue that did not exist. With each lie, I felt myself sinking deeper into this bizarre alternate reality that Marcus had created without my knowledge or consent. The drive home was tense and silent until I finally found my voice. "Marcus, what the hell was that about?" I demanded, turning to face him as he focused intently on the road ahead. "Why did you tell everyone I am pregnant when I am not?" He glanced at me with what appeared to be genuine surprise. "I wanted to surprise you, sweetheart," he said, reaching over to squeeze my hand. "I have been tracking your cycle, and I am absolutely certain you are pregnant. The home test probably just needs more time to show positive results. You know how unreliable those can be in the early stages." His explanation sounded reasonable enough that I allowed a small seed of hope to plant itself in my chest. Maybe he was right. Maybe I was pregnant, and it was just too early for the test to detect. When we got home, Marcus had already purchased a more expensive digital test, insisting we try it immediately. Negative. Completely, undeniably negative. Marcus stared at the test result with what looked like genuine shock. "This cannot be right," he murmured, running his hands through his hair. "Maybe it is still too early to detect. These things can be tricky, especially in the first few weeks." He promised to book an appointment with my doctor first thing Monday morning, assuring me that we would get definitive answers soon. But something in his attitude bothered me. Despite his apparent disappointment about the negative test, he seemed oddly calm about having just announced a fake pregnancy to our entire family. When I suggested calling everyone to explain the mistake, he quickly talked me out of it, saying we should wait until we had seen the doctor to avoid unnecessary confusion. The week following Thanksgiving became a surreal exercise in performance art. Marcus found excuse after excuse to postpone the doctor's appointment. First, Dr. Peterson was booked solid until after the new year. Then he suggested we wait another week to be absolutely certain before we spent money on unnecessary tests. Each delay felt like another weight added to the growing knot of anxiety in my stomach. Meanwhile, our families called daily to check on my pregnancy. Dorothy wanted to discuss baby names and started researching cribs online. Jennifer texted constantly asking about my energy levels and whether I was keeping prenatal vitamins down. I found myself buying actual pregnancy books and vitamins to maintain the charade each purchase, feeling like another step deeper into an elaborate lie. The pressure was becoming unbearable. I had to pretend to have morning sickness, claiming I could not eat certain foods that had never bothered me before. When Dorothy invited me to lunch and wanted to discuss nursery themes, I sat there nodding and smiling, while inside, I felt like I was slowly losing my mind. By Friday evening, I was exhausted from the constant pretending and increasingly suspicious of Marcus's motives. Something about the way he deflected every attempt to see a doctor, combined with his strange calmness about the whole situation, was setting off alarm bells I could not ignore. That Friday night changed everything. Marcus left his phone on the kitchen counter when he went to the gym, something he never did. The device buzzed with a text message, and when I glanced at the screen, I saw a message from someone labeled simply as S. "How much longer do I have to wait?" the message read. I stared at those words, my heart beginning to pound. I knew I should not look at his private messages, but something compelled me to unlock his phone and read the conversation thread. What I found made my blood run cold. Marcus had responded, "Just a few more days. The family bought it completely." S wrote back, "I am showing now. We cannot hide this much longer." Marcus replied, "I know, baby. Once Thanksgiving settles down, I will figure out the divorce." My hands shook as I scrolled up through months of messages between Marcus and this mysterious S. The picture that emerged was devastating and crystal clear. S was Sierra Marcus's 26-year-old assistant at his financial firm. They had been having an affair for the past 4 months, and Sierra was genuinely pregnant with Marcus's child. She was 14 weeks along, well past the point where hiding it would be possible much longer. Marcus had orchestrated my fake pregnancy as a distraction technique. His plan was ingenious in its cruelty: announce that I was pregnant to get the family excited and focused on our good news, then wait a few weeks before revealing that I had suffered a miscarriage. During the family's grief and concern for my well-being, he would file for divorce, citing the emotional strain of losing the baby. After an appropriate mourning period, he would introduce Sierra as his new love interest, and when their baby arrived, everyone would see it as a beautiful new beginning rather than the product of an affair. The messages between Marcus and Sierra revealed the depth of their betrayal. They had laughed about how easily I had fallen for the pregnancy announcement. Sierra had written, "She actually stood there letting everyone touch her belly. Pathetic." Marcus had responded, "She has always been gullible. Makes this easier." They had planned every detail of my humiliation. Marcus had researched grief counseling to appear supportive after the fake miscarriage. Sierra was carrying a boy, and they had already chosen to name him Marcus Jr. Marcus had promised to marry Sierra on Valentine's Day of the following year. The final text in their thread was from Sierra, sent earlier that evening. "Call me once it is done tomorrow night. I love you and our real family." I sat in my dark kitchen staring at that phone screen until the words blurred through my tears. 7 years of marriage, 3 real miscarriages that had broken my heart, and I had been grieving with someone who was capable of this level of calculated cruelty. The man I had trusted with my deepest pain, who had held me through the worst moments of my life, had been planning to use that very pain as a weapon against me. I spent that entire night awake processing the magnitude of Marcus's betrayal, while a plan began forming in my mind. I could confront him immediately, but that would only give him the opportunity to manipulate the situation further. Instead, I decided to beat him at his own game. If Marcus thought he could orchestrate my humiliation, he was about to learn what real humiliation felt like. The first week of my revenge planning was dedicated to gathering evidence. I secretly installed a tracking application on our shared laptop, which captured every keystroke and message Marcus sent. I took screenshots of his entire conversation history with Sierra, documenting their affair timeline and their cruel mockery of my supposed gullibility. I also discovered he had been using our joint credit card to pay for Sierra's prenatal care, providing me with financial evidence of his deception. I contacted Patricia Walsh, a former attorney, who had become a private investigator specializing in divorce cases. Patricia helped me understand exactly what evidence I would need to protect myself legally and financially. She also helped me document the emotional distress damages that Marcus's elaborate scheme had caused, creating a paper trail that would be crucial later. During my second week of preparation, I maintained the pregnancy charade while secretly planning what I called my truth reveal party. I told Marcus I wanted to throw a baby announcement celebration for our friends and family, explaining that I wanted to properly share our joy with everyone important to us. Marcus was thrilled with the idea, seeing it as another opportunity to cement his elaborate lie before the planned fake miscarriage. I booked our country club for the following Saturday evening and invited 50 people, both our family's close friends, and Marcus's entire office staff, including Sierra. I hired a photographer to capture what I told everyone would be a precious milestone moment. I ordered a custom cake decorated with a fake ultrasound image and spent hours crafting the centerpiece of my revenge, a video presentation that would reveal the truth in the most devastating way possible. The video began sweetly with our wedding photos and happy family moments set to romantic music. For the first 3 minutes, it looked like a standard celebration of our journey toward parenthood. Then, without warning, the screenshots of Marcus and Sierra's text messages appeared on screen, each one more damning than the last. I included the bank statements showing payments for Sierra's prenatal care, followed by Sierra's actual ultrasound photos that I had found in Marcus's email account. The video concluded with a single line of text: "Now everyone knows who is actually pregnant in this family." Patricia helped me prepare all the legal documentation I would need, ensuring that divorce papers would be ready for immediate filing. She also arranged for law enforcement to be available if the situation escalated, though I hoped my public revelation would be so complete that Marcus would have no choice but to accept defeat gracefully. The night before the party, I felt a strange sense of calm settle over me. For 2 weeks I'd been living with the knowledge of Marcus's betrayal, watching him lie to my face every single day while he planned my emotional destruction. Tomorrow the truth would finally come out, and everyone who loved us would understand exactly what kind of man I had been married to. Saturday evening arrived with perfect autumn weather. Our country club looked beautiful, decorated with soft lighting and elegant floral arrangements. 50 guests mingled in the main dining room, sipping cocktails and chatting excitedly about the baby announcement they were expecting to celebrate. Sierra arrived with Marcus's co-workers, looking nervous, but trying to blend in with the crowd. She had no idea what was coming, which made the evening feel even more surreal. I played the perfect hostess, charming everyone with stories about our pregnancy journey and accepting congratulations with gracious smiles. Marcus was in his element, working the room with the confidence of a man who believed he had successfully manipulated everyone around him. He kept his arm around my waist, possessively, occasionally leaning in to whisper sweet comments about how perfect the evening was turning out to be. When dinner concluded, I stood up and tapped my champagne glass to get everyone's attention. Thank you all for being here tonight to celebrate this special time in our lives. I began, my voice carrying clearly across the silent room. I have prepared something very special to share with you about our pregnancy journey. The lights dimmed and the large screen at the front of the room lit up with the opening frames of my video. For the first few minutes, the audience smiled and laughed at the sweet moments from our relationship. Dorothy wiped away happy tears as our wedding photos appeared on screen. Jennifer squeezed my hand, whispering how beautiful the presentation was. Then the text messages appeared. The first screenshot showed Marcus telling Sierra that the family had bought it completely. A confused murmur rippled through the crowd as people tried to understand what they were seeing. The second screenshot revealed Sierra's pregnancy and their discussion about the divorce timeline. By the third screenshot, which showed them laughing about me letting people touch my belly, the room had fallen into complete silence except for the sound of people gasping in shock. Sierra bolted from her chair and ran toward the exit, but it was too late. Everyone had seen her face, and the ultrasound photos with her name clearly visible were now displayed on the giant screen. Marcus lunged toward the audio-visual control panel, but I had already locked the system with a password he would never guess. The video continued relentlessly. Bank records showing payments for Sierra's prenatal care, their discussion of baby names, their plans for a Valentine's Day wedding. Every cruel detail of their affair and their mockery of my pain played out in front of our families, friends, and colleagues. When the final slide appeared with its simple message about who was actually pregnant, the room remained frozen in stunned silence for what felt like an eternity. Then Dorothy stood up slowly, her face pale with shock and anger. "Get out," she said to Marcus, her voice shaking with rage. "Get out of this room, right now." The chaos that followed was swift and decisive. Jennifer and several family members surrounded me with support, while Marcus tried desperately to explain himself. He claimed the messages had been taken out of context, that Sierra had been pursuing him, that everything had been a misunderstanding that got out of control. No one was buying his explanations. The evidence had been too comprehensive, too clearly documented. Guests began leaving, some stopping to offer me words of support, others simply shaking their heads in disbelief as they filed out into the night. Patricia appeared at my side with a manila folder containing divorce papers that had been prepared and notarized that afternoon. "Marcus," I said, calmly cutting through his frantic attempts to salvage the situation, "I filed divorce papers yesterday. You have 48 hours to collect your belongings and move out of our house." Law enforcement officers who Patricia had arranged to be on standby escorted Marcus from the building when he began shouting about how I had set him up. Sierra's husband, who had received copies of all the evidence earlier that day, was waiting in the parking lot to confront his own cheating wife. As I drove home that night, I felt lighter than I had in weeks. The truth was finally out, and everyone who mattered to me understood exactly what had happened. Marcus's carefully constructed plan had backfired spectacularly, and he was facing the consequences of his actions with nowhere to hide. 3 weeks later, I received a letter that made me laugh out loud for the first time since Thanksgiving. Marcus was suing me for emotional distress, claiming that my public revelation had damaged his mental health and professional reputation. His lawsuit argued that I should have handled our marital problems privately instead of humiliating him in front of everyone we knew. The irony was breathtaking. The man who had planned to fake my pregnancy, force me to pretend for weeks, and then crush me with a fake miscarriage, was now claiming that I had caused him emotional distress by revealing his own actions. What Marcus did not know was that I had been recording our conversations since the night I discovered his affair. I had hours of audio of him admitting to the fake pregnancy plan, discussing his timeline for divorcing me, and even bragging to Sierra about how easily he had manipulated both me and our families. The court hearing was brief and decisive. When Marcus's lawyer presented their case for emotional distress, my attorney simply played the recorded conversations that proved Marcus had planned every detail of my humiliation. The judge not only dismissed the lawsuit, but ordered Marcus to pay all my legal fees. Marcus also faced potential fraud charges for using our joint credit card to pay for his mistress's medical expenses without my knowledge. His professional reputation was destroyed when his firm learned about his affair with a subordinate and the elaborate deception he had orchestrated. Sierra gave birth to their son 2 months later, but their relationship crumbled under the weight of public scrutiny and mutual resentment. She blamed Marcus for not protecting her from the fallout, while he resented her for pressuring him to move faster than his original timeline. 6 months after that devastating Thanksgiving dinner, I was thriving in ways I never could have imagined. The divorce settlement was favorable, allowing me to keep our house and the majority of our shared assets. I had been promoted at work partly because my colleagues admired how I had handled such a difficult situation with grace and strength. More importantly, I had rediscovered who I was outside of a marriage that had been slowly eroding my sense of self-worth. Through grief counseling that I had sought to process the betrayal, I met David, a widower, who understood loss and the importance of genuine honesty in relationships. I learned that sometimes the people closest to us wear the most convincing masks, and it can take a dramatic revelation to see who they really are underneath. But once you see their true face, you can never unsee it. The best revenge is not getting even with someone who has hurt you. The best revenge is becoming someone so much better than they ever deserved to have in their life. Today I am grateful for that humiliating Thanksgiving dinner. It showed me exactly who I was married to, and more importantly, it revealed who I could become without him. Sometimes the worst betrayal can become the greatest gift if it opens your eyes to the truth and gives you the courage to demand better for yourself. Have you ever discovered that someone you trusted completely was living a double life? How did you handle finding out that your reality was built on lies? Let me know in the comments below what you think about Marcus's elaborate deception and whether you believe my revenge was justified. Please like this video. If my story resonated with you, subscribe for more real-life stories about overcoming betrayal, and share this with anyone who might need to hear that they deserve better than someone who would manipulate and humiliate them. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it reminds you that your worth is never determined by how someone else chooses to treat you. Stay strong, trust your instincts, and never be afraid to demand the truth you deserve.